you live your life.
Wellness is a lifestyle.
And enjoying moments.
The initial idea of wellness. So the first time we met at your offices in Gurgaon, you came with a very clear brief. From almost the first minute, you started talking about wellness. You didn't really know what the project needed to be about, but you knew that you wanted wellness to embody it, to be the driving factor. So I thought it'd be really interesting to hear what wellness means to you on a personal level and how you live your life, and how does wellness impact your everyday lives?
So I personally feel that wellness is a lifestyle. You as soon as you wake up or till the time you go to sleep, it's all about the way you live your life, mindfully. So when you wake up, you take the sun, you take a little bit of time. It's a slow process. You're starting your day slow, so that everything and the meditation that you do in the morning or something like that, you pick up a habit and you start your day slow, which kind of makes you more calm, more relaxed during your entire day, because there's a lot of things coming in your day. It's a chaotic life in the cities. You have to make sure that you get that peaceful time to yourself. And then you start with your fitness. Then you start with your day with a good superfoods, starting as a holistic, lifestyle. And that follows with your work. When you take your work as a balanced time between your life and your work, it kind of harmonizes together. And that is extremely important, which you're not able to find in cities like Gurgaon or Delhi or these metropolitan cities. You need that kind of a silence and composure to start your day, then take it forward. With the chaotic lifestyle that you have at work, there's so much happening, and you have to be settled and balanced in your head. That is extremely important. And then, of course, fitness plays a major part in this, because when you start your day with a balanced mind and a fit body, it anyway percolates in each and everything that you do. When you meet people or when you do your work or whatever you do, any action you take, you come from a place which is more focused, right? Because that is extremely important when you're working out also, and you're doing anything of that sort. You need focus to really release the endorphins or the in your body, so that your mind is always in a kind of happy state. So that seems one part of the wellness angle. And of course, your environment that you create around yourself at home or at your work or with the people you meet, the communities you interact with, the way you start, your weekends. It can always be, of course, with a good cycling trip in the morning, or a running, kind of a running community you can join. There are various things that you can start with. So that is a great part of it. And of course, I don't say that you should not have a good time in the evenings. You can definitely have a drink or two. So we're talking about a holistic living lifestyle, which is an everyday routine. So, you don't have to follow any strict diet every day. You can start with small changes in your diet, add some superfoods and stuff like that, and then make it a lifestyle for you every day, so that it can be a long process, rather than a small bit of a diet for a brief time and then you change things.
So I think that's you've hit the nail on the head. And I think what we're noticing working international is that historically there's been a lot of luxury this, luxury that. Wellness and well-being is becoming the new currency, really, in how people want to live. That's a luxury in itself. And I think what we've witnessed as well is that there are wellness resorts that are sort of popping out, which are places for people to go and relax and unwind. And I think, Abhishek, at the beginning of the project, as when we were studying what wellness really meant, you visited, I believe, a number of these wellness resorts. And I'm wondering whether you could tell me a little bit about Vana because the designer of Vana became, Esteban became an integral part of the design team that came up with the concept for this project. And so I'd be interested in hearing that specific resort. What did it make you feel like, and what inspired you with that? And how do you think it was an environment that was conducive to wellness?
Absolutely. It was really a journey for us when we thought about making residential housing designed around wellness, because there are many aspects of wellness which are now required in a bustling city life. Like Aman said, everything is like really fast paced, and there is so much pollution, noise, traffic, stress. So really you need a resort for you to actually plan and think about and then afford, because you'll have to really take out time, spend money, and go there and be there and lose all the other life that you have here to experience that, right? So whatever we saw in these wellness retreats was something that was obviously something that was really special, scientific, thorough and things like that. But there are many elements which one could enjoy being where they are, with the harmony between their existing life, how they live, how they do their work and be with family. They could spend that. They could actually coexist with their wellness selves without visiting those those resorts. I'm not saying that you will not still, if you're in a housing based on wellness, you will not go there. But I mean, you have so many things that you need on daily life, and if you don't do that, you can never be healthy, right?
Yeah.
Just by going to these resorts 8 days a year, or 2 weeks or month a year, you won't be healthy throughout. So yeah, I mean, talking about Vana, one of the resorts, and we were really inspired by the design and architecture and the overall programs they have. So what's about Vana is, like, first of all, it's a beautiful design. It's actually, you feel like they made it within the jungle, rather than they made and they planted trees. It's like you're actually going inside a forest, and then you find these buildings coming out. In terms of the aesthetics, it's so soothing, because every material there seems like from the earth. From the earth, the mountains, everything is so earthy. So you're already like relaxed. You don't feel, there's so much relying on walking to places. It's not like you'll always have like a lift going up, and then you go here, and then you'll have a golf cart going. So everything is about mobility. And their programs, of course, they look at overall wellness. So when you arrive there, you become, you become absolutely one with that place. You become the resident, and they check mentally, they check you everything regarding your blood works, regarding your health, and the specific programs are very, very specific, which were really impressive. So we were really impressed, and when we met Tommy from Esteva, we were discussing that. And he was excited, as excited as you guys. He was really excited. And it's just something that he told me that we normally, if we speak to like 20 people and get propositions, it's only one that we would be interested in. And within our first meeting, he was a yes, because he was excited. And it's something that really gelled with, his fundamentals about creating something around wellness.
And I think what you'll see with this project, I think what really emerged from this is a project that feels fundamentally completely different from anything currently available in the Gurgaon market. Yeah. And I think the reason, one is obviously that nature takes center stage. But I think one of the things that we discussed and had so many discussions about was your senses are attacked. You've got your mobiles, you've got screens, you've got cars, you've got noises, you've got, especially like Gurgaon, it's sensory overload. And I think with Vana, one of the things you were describing is that a lot of it had been stripped away. And I think when you look at the interiors and when you look at the architecture of our project, I think what we've managed to do is we've almost imbued a calmness into the spaces where you can take that breath. You know, when people talk about luxury, there's often an abundance of ornamental decoration, and you know, historically, even if you look back to the Mughal palaces and stuff, it's been about how can we, you know,
feel egoistic.
Yeah, no, but how can we put as much decoration and detail? And I think here what we've done is we've actually done the opposite. We've stripped everything that doesn't need to be there. It's been stripped away, and we've let nature really take the main role here, right? Center stage. And I think what you touched on, the natural materials, you know, it's more soothing, and I think people will be quite intrigued when they see the spaces inside this building and how different they feel to the typical spaces that we see around here, especially in luxury residential. I think this is there's complete departure. And I think once upon a while you fall on these projects that become catalysts for a whole new movement, where I feel that you guys, and I got to commend you on this, were courageous enough to go out of the typical mold of how, you know, luxury real estate is typically taken, and taken a slightly different way, which some people would say, you know, more minimal. There's an element of sophistication as well, but it's also an element of going back to the basics.
Yes. It's like being in a space, in a jungle or in a mountain or by the ocean, where you don't feel that there is Italian marble beneath your feet, or there is, you know, this light that's coming from a different direction, or there is, you know, this whole thing about, materials which are shouting at you. And then you suddenly become part of that nature. Even if you have the most expensive materials, you will not notice them. They're subtly there.
So they're there.
They're there, but they're not shouting towards you that, look at me. Because they are meant to canvas the nature. They're not meant to be in front. They're meant to be at the background or be at the frame, be like a frame for nature. So, I mean, that's really interesting, you know. And I remember talking to you about the landscaping. We're thinking that, you know, we saw so many projects and everything had these big lawns which are like public and looked by through all angles of the housing. And we said, you know, we really want to make it like a resort with so many different intimate landscape spaces which are like within, you know, nature, and not something that's got only like no use, but it's like a big lawn and there's no use. Rather have like
multiple
10,
spaces
15
where you know
spaces where
you can go with the community. Basically, we want to build a community there where people come together, you know, because, you know, when you have a very huge space, there will be people coming together, but then it's not going to be intimate, right? You need these intimate spaces to talk to people, you know, understand each other. Maybe a 10 to 12 people in the
and have
community
purpose.
can
have purpose for those areas.
Yeah,
I think
like we have
community,
breakout floors where people can go and interact with each other. They don't have to go to the clubhouse to do it. You know, they can have a place which is closer to their house. Go down, they can meditate there, they can talk. They have a beautiful view. We have a golf course in front of the project, and it's the entire view of 180-degree view of the golf course in the Aravali's. And because of the fact that this area is right next to, you know, the main spaces, the main areas of Gurgaon, and while being a more relaxed, more open, right? Because it's not the part of the urban jungle as per se, being actually an escape for people who are staying in that urban jungle.
Like everywhere, whenever you search for you know, a land for yourself, a residence for yourself, what you do, you want to be near, you know, so that you easily drive to work or drive to the market or whatever. But at the same time, you want a location which is inside, quiet, by the park. You know, you always look at
Facing
your house.
the greens, or
Always you look at your house. You would never want a house on the main road. So if you talk about all the areas which are most congested in Gurgaon, it's like being on the road. It's like living on the main road.
And mostly you'll see these kind of projects where they are right on the main either highway or roads and stuff like that. And there's a lot of traffic going on. There's something happening and all of that. And they're part of that whole scenario. And that kind of drives me mad. I'm sure it drives a lot of people too.
People, it's not desirable
it's,
anymore. I mean,
it's not desirable.
if you work from 9 to 5 and you have 24 hours in a day, where 8 hours you sleep, there is only, like
3 hours or 4 hours. Or
you have for your family and for yourself. And that's where you like rejuvenate, and that's where you repair yourself.
So that's what we actually had in mind when we spoke to you initially, that when a person comes in, he forgets, he forgets the problems, the nuances and everything. Not forgets, but at least gets relaxed when he comes in, and he's in nature. He has a lifestyle that to look forward to, which is more relaxed, more peaceful. Where of course, when he's coming from a place of peace, his productivity, which he would normally take 8 hours to complete work of 4 hours, will definitely the efficiency is going to increase. So that is very important that we thought from our own lifestyles, because when we do these things and our efficiency increases, even though we put lesser time to do the jobs that we used to take more time to do, it kind of gives you a work-life harmony. And that's exactly what we want that people should get when they come to a place which we are trying to build.
And I wanted to ask you also, like, if you like to share.
So Jonas, you've been doing such prestigious or good projects all around the world. You've worked on mostly every kind of design. It's been years and years you've been doing this. How do you differentiate our project to the other projects?
So I think and I've actually said this on multiple occasions, but I think it was first of all is the process, and the process really informs the product. And what I found so interesting about our process is that it started from a discussion. It started from a vibe. How do we create a vibe? How do we create a lifestyle? How do we create a culture? And how does that inform the end product? And I think what has been really fun is your level of involvement from both of you. You've been so involved in every decision along the journey, which has also really challenged us to try to find new solutions, to try to find unusual ways of doing things. So we couldn't just do things how we typically do it. So we had to you learn stuff from every project, right? So what we had to do is find solutions that we might have been using in Japan or in Taiwan or in Cyprus or in the Med or in the Middle East, and take the best bits of it and try to incorporate that into this vision that you were trying to create. I think what sets this apart and what makes it different is it's the consistency of the initial idea of wellness and how it's been carried through into really all aspects of the design. And from the way the towers are shaped, instead of being very orthogonal, straight-edged blocks, they are designed in a very biophilic, way, where we've looked at plant structure, we looked at organic structure, and you notice that the edges there's no straight 90-degree angle on the building. It also doesn't end sort of chopped off at the top with a mumti sticking out. The whole aspect of it looks like an element that could have been grown from Mother Earth, from nature, right?
Exactly.
And I think it's really the culmination and the consistency that you guys have really hammered in every aspect of it. From you arrive in your underground garage, and instead of being a garage, we have this sunken courtyard. So even in your garage, you get water feature, waterfall coming down.
That's
You've
right.
got a tree and greenery and natural light that comes in. So it's the whole journey. And I think what's quite cool about this is actually, and I think it's this idea of an architectural journey. And as I said, Le Corbusier termed it la promenade architecturale, which is the architectural journey, and how we've designed this project almost based on a day in the life of one of the residents, from the moment they step in the door to when they park their car or get dropped off, and walk along and have the river or the stream guide them to their entrance, and the amenities that they then see and their experience in their lifts, and the fact that they have their own lift bank that takes them to their own apartment, and they have a foyer as they come out, and you can take that breath of kind of coming home, and the way that the apartments are designed to benefit natural light, triple aspect. So it's really so many little things that the culmination of those and the level of thought and care and diligence that's gone into it is, I think, will set the project apart. And absolutely. I think if that same amount of diligence goes into the delivery of the project and how it gets built, I think it's going to be something quite unique, not only here, but international. And I think what you also managed to do is hire a team of specialist consultants that were very aligned in the vision.
Yes.
So instead of being sort of one person brings one thing to the table and another thing, and sometimes there can be a little bit of a disconnect between certain elements of the interior and different visions for different aspects or landscape. Here, everything merges. It's all consistent because
something that we also noticed along the way was that, we've worked with other foreign architects as well. We worked with other architects as well. So it's all about, work and then go home kind of an attitude, right? This has been more of a project which has brought, our hearts together, like in terms of UHAs or Isteva or the other consultants. And we've actually interacted at a very human level for the project rather than just, okay, an hourly on a basis of an hour, we would just talk about the project and we'll give you this and that's it and we're done, the day's over. It wasn't like that. We all came on a human level to understand each other and understand the project in more complexities, detailing. So there's so much detailing that has gone into each and every small aspect of it because it was from the heart.
Yeah, we really poured our hearts, all of us.
Absolutely no relation, no consultant or advisor or people related to this project where the relation has been purely transactional. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's been so involving. And all of them have taken personal care. We have had chats midnight. We have chats early morning. We've had so many
ideas
things
coming out, out of things.
And people have gone out of the way. You've gone out of the way so many times. I mean,
absolutely.
That.
Thank you so much for that.
It's like it's me, it's my thing. And, I have to make sure. So even today, or even 2 years from now, I mean, we discussed this, we'll still be on the same page like we were designing, It would never be like, oh, I've done this and I'm done and dusted, because it's a relation that you form with the product and with the people
I think
who had a common
super
goal.
important. I think we are selling sort of a lifestyle and a culture to our residents. And I think we all take a huge amount of ownership in this project. It's a project that is, as you said, we've poured our hearts into it. It's dear to our hearts. So one of the things that I'd like you guys to expand on is the delivery.
Yes.
And because you guys being the developers, it's your commitment really to the clients that they will see this vision, and it's a beautiful vision. Maybe you can talk a little bit about giving your clients the comfort level that you will deliver on this vision. I know it because I've worked with you guys over the past many, many, many months, and I can see the personal kind of energy and passion that's gone into it.
Yes.
But if you could talk about how you see, the next stages happening, would be really interesting for me to hear.
Sure.
So, when we discuss some projects where you're in a hurry to show it to the world, you're in a hurry to earn out of it and move on. That's the journey that I wouldn't say a lot of people, but most of them have when discussing a business or something like that. And, one can be flown away into knowing, I have resources, let's do 7 projects, 5 projects, and, we can churn this and let's hire these consultants and these advisors and crunch the numbers and it'll all work out. But when you consciously think about creating, something very passion driven and artistic and close to your heart, you have to scale down. you can't scale in 5 and 7 projects, or something where you can't have your undivided attention.
Mhm.
So with this, we've been working on the designs, as you well know, over 15, 16 months, just deliberating on each and every detail. And so when the concept started, or whatever, what we liked, and we froze that this is how we're going to do it, it's been probably a long time since then, detailing each and every aspect into the project. What is going to be the materials, how it's going to be made, what is going to be the part of elevation, interiors, the services, and everything. And you know how thorough the planning is. You looked at it. So before we are in the market to give our promises, we have already done all the calculations, the detailed drawings, the renders of each and every space, and we have tried and tested those materials in our fantastic experience center. That has the aesthetics and the language.
We will come to that from your end as well.
For how the housing is going to be.
Yeah.
And there is nothing left to fate in terms of sourcing materials or things that are going to come up. And so,
basically, that vision has already been delivered
then,
in form
of course,
the
the
experience
financial,
center, and then of course it has to be. It'll become a bigger thing going the same way in the projects.
And the financial prudence of it also has a very big role to play.
Plus,
because
the legacy we come from. It's a third generation business. It's not something which has been started recently, or so we come from a family and a third generation that we have delivered multiple projects. Multiple project means probably more than 100 or maybe 200 projects in the past, and our delivery has been spot on, timely. It's coming from our grandfather's time, 1950s. So the deliveries haven't stopped till now. So we don't see any problem there because that is our focus. Our core focus has been construction initially, and then we got into development in the late 70s. So we've been doing this since donkey years. We've been, actually the time since we were born, we've been going to sites. So it's a family thing for us, and that's how we have focused on each and every project. And we don't like to, like Abhishek said, that we don't like to, take up 10 projects, 7 projects, 8 projects at a time, even though we could, but we don't want to do that because we want to concentrate on something that we are providing, and that's supposed to become a landmark. Whatever projects that we have done till now have become landmarks. They have been fully occupied. They have been fully functional. There has been no project that has been a ghost project where people can't live. The maintenance of each and every project has been spectacular. It's been years and years. Our buildings are standing tall with beautiful maintenance. So we really focus on the operations bit a lot, and our personal involvement is there in all those things. So as far as the delivery is concerned, as far as the vision is concerned, everything has been thought of in a very detailed manner, and the focus is towards.
And when you have a legacy, right? When you have a legacy, if something, for example, is just something very emotional and psychological, if you have a legacy which is so old and which has been standing, solid for so many years, you have an obligation to protect it. If you have only your name, you'll be like, okay, let him say something about me. But when you have a legacy, it attaches the name of your forefathers, your father, so many years who've worked so hard. So you never can. It's an obligation to them. It's an obligation. So it's a fort that they've.
I think if the sales center or the experience center rather, because it really is an experience center rather than a sales center, if that's anything to go by, I think it's gonna be an incredible way for people to get a sense of what it will be like to live in this project, right? And I think I would really urge people, and I cannot wait for it to finish, for people to experience it, because I think, we can show people pretty images. We can show people incredible animations and plans, but I think the experience of walking in and getting a sense
Yeah.
of what this could be like.
Absolutely.
I think it goes from being a vision to starting to become reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I think it's definitely one of the most intricate and thought through experience centers that I've seen in a while. And I think people, again, it's designed around the idea of a journey.
Yes.
So when Esteva conceived the concept or the underlying concept for this sales center, it was again around the journey, arriving in this beautiful courtyard, and then your journey to kind of go to the spaces, and then this sequence of spaces, which exactly mimics what's going to happen in the project, right?
Yes.
And the different,
Absolutely.
you spoke about community.
Yes.
And I think community is a big driver for this project.
Yes.
And I think, again, here in the center of the experience center, we've put a garden, a green open space, right? In the center of the experience center, right? And I think that talks a little bit about what this project stands for. And yeah.
Exactly, like you said, community just strikes. It's very important. You really choose where you want to go, where you don't want to go, because the kind of crowd you expect, even for a couple of hours. Like if you were to choose between, you have 3 invitations, and you'll always be like, oh, I want to go here versus there, because you know what kind of crowd comes there, what kind of people you'll meet, and it's something that will be worth your time, and you want to be around those kind of people and that energy, right? So whenever you have something which is related to a certain concept or something that is as fundamental as health, wellness, and stuff like that, you'll always feel that, I mean, I'm going to be surrounded by my neighbors are going to be also be, very, very much into a healthy lifestyle, being happy, mentally relaxed and stuff like that. And they also want the things I want. And that's so great because, like everywhere you go, you'll find that kind of people who are valuing health and wellness. And
no, and I think I think that's been a driver as well. I think all of us have kids.
Absolutely.
And we, I think, discussed how would we make this a scheme where our kids could just come down and play around, and they wouldn't have to worry about cars, and they wouldn't have to worry about these things, and they could actually be out in nature and experience some of these spaces and have amenities. And I think that's another important aspect of the scheme is how we've tried to conceive it for different people and different ages. And how is a child going to experience this? How would our elderly parent or even grandparents experience the center, and how would they use the spaces, and how would they interact? And I think it's scenarios that we're creating, and we're creating the framework for people to live that.
Jonas, the screens nowadays, like with the kids, because we have very young kids.
It's the bane of my life.
So, and the screens coming in and all of that, and they're so used to being even if they're in school, they're using screens. When they come back, they're using screens. They need to really go and feel nature, like how we used to when we were kids, because there used to be no screens, there used to be no phones at that time. And we were very, we grew up in parks, or we went and, we felt nature, we played, we had a lot of activities. So we've made it around that. Like there's going to be so much nature, and it's the entire ground floor is traffic free. So, if kid comes out and has to go anywhere, there is no problem. The security or the traffic movement and everything is taken care of.
We've got a fantastic kids club.
And it's like it's like a club for everybody. So for the elderly, it's it's another feel. For the kids, it's another big huge clubhouse, and for all ages actually. So community at every level has been thought of, and that is the detailing that we were talking about. That we want to ensure that every age group who stays there has their own community that is built around it, because community is most important with a human being, and that's very, very important part of wellness. Like if we talk about our communities that we are into or we are building also, we have tied up with those communities also for this project. Like we talk about Knox. Knox is it's a gym, but it's a community as well. And Knox is a studio in Gurgaon or Delhi, and they have a community. We've brought them in to take care of the gym and of the other aspects in terms
Physical
of
fitness.
physical fitness.
So they are very, very nicely
They are
done
our
a brand.
advisors in physical
Yeah.
fitness. Then our wellness advisors are L'Occitane. So L'Occitane is the oldest, one of the oldest chains. You would know
Yeah.
that.
Growing up in the south of France, I'm very
So,
familiar with L'Occitane en Provence.
yeah, so it's the oldest wellness chain, and they are going to take care of our wellness. That is how we have designed this community and tied up with these these brands, because to bring their expertise in to create what our vision is, and eventually make their own vision for this. It's a stepping stone towards something new, something beautiful that we have planned, and then of course there'll be many more in the future. That's what we hope.
What's important is that you have to. So there is no precedent for this. You don't have a group housing with wellness as the center scheme, and most importantly, preventive wellness or things that are akin to a wellness retreat or a resort. You don't have that anywhere till date, till now. I mean, there are some projects which are launched in the Middle East. There are projects now being launched everywhere around the world, as you know. But none of them has actually been doing it for years to take precedence from. So we are involved so personally about this that with all these brands, I mean, they're so interested. We are so interested in finding out what's the new thing that we do for kids, physical well-being, emotional well-being. What do you do for the seniors' well-being to make them preempt any diseases they might have or the adults might have? How do we take care of their nutrition? It's been a big
important part.
Question mark of whatever we have and consume in the city, and that's something we are bent to solve.
Because we want to introduce the farm to folk.
Yeah,
in this, because
exactly.
we want to we are tying up with multiple farms which are going to give us organic produce which can be sold in the project, and people can buy that organic produce instead of going to big confectionaries and buying something which might not be organic. So we want to focus on that as well. And of course there will be a nutritionist who will be teaching different dishes, different things for people to understand, because nutrition, your gut is most important. When you're talking about any disease,
different.
It all leads from the gut.
Like a diet cannot be same for you and me or him.
You have to protect the gut, and there are multiple kinds of nutritions that will help you protect your gut, will help you protect your because gut will make sure. I mean, through the gut, you'll have a good experience throughout the day, right? When you eat superfoods in the morning, you're relaxed.
You sound like my wife.
We have to.
No, it's the gut's incredibly important, and I think so. What you're saying really is from the micro to the macro. I think all parts need to be covered. And I think you spoke about Kids Club, you spoke about vehicular free access. I think architecturally, what we tried to do as well is to do a series of spaces that were incredibly well connected and very porous, meaning that you could walk through the project and experience it differently. So you can arrive in your lobby, you can be outside, you can walk outside and still be covered, walk up a staircase, get to the pool deck. You can walk from the pool deck around in this beautiful corridor that has these kind of louvers that take you around where you're protected, and you go to the kids club or the bar area. You have another elevated kids area with greenery overlooking. It's very, very interconnected, and there's lots of different spaces, some intimate, some larger. We have an amazing performance space in the corner where there will be festivals and celebration, and all of it outdoor, covered, shaded. I think we did a lot of work from the sustainability and from a comfort level.
Coming from that, all of these things, when we did all of these things, then we got to know that there is a certification for that. It's called V2 Well certification. And that's what we thought that, okay, so we've already touched on these points, and AQI, which is under 50 throughout the interiors of the project, making it into a kind of a bubble in an urban jungle wherein you can breathe easily, you can, be at peace, you can do multiple wellness activities, and keeping all of that with obviously the water, the air, the all the elements are attacked, like how you had mentioned this. So well certification has been a good part that we've brought in. Then we have IGBC platinum that we're looking at. So sustainability as a building, as a project, we've gone to the mountains for that.
Speaking of mountains, one of the, or actually I should say two of the features that I know we've had multiple discussions on was one, the river, the stream, and the mound.
Yeah.
So since they were your sort of, babies, let's say this, maybe you can talk a little bit about that at the entrance, because we really poured a lot of work into making those work.
Very insistent of having those.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that you want to be surrounded. So either you are at the podium level or the ground level, so wherever you are within that amenities in the club area, you should see trees, you should see greens. And if you just leave it flat, you don't see those layers coming up to the podium level. And I think that was one of the very important things, to have that slice of nature, which is, and also a very good spot because it just it's surrounded by all the lobbies, and all the lobbies, wherever you come inside, you welcome through that river and through that hillock which is there. And I mean, it took a lot of time, but I think it's amazing that one could have that right in the center space, and it gives a great energy as well.
We have the waterfall connecting,
and that goes down
where the river culminates in a waterfall that's visible when you come drive down into your basement. So
that was the thought process, keeping that nature, mountains and everything where you are, again, bringing it into making people aware with these five senses, five elements.
And it was of course it was your idea about the landscape, where we both had a vision, that we all have a vision, that we don't want the building to be surrounded by greens, we want the building to rise up from the forest, right? And that's how it was amazing that you could develop that layers of greens within every floor. And for every floor we have 3 planters. It's just something that,
well, we use the greens to provide the shading for the spaces,
exactly,
and become this green hill. So the first sketch, if you remember, that I did was this green hill where the towers floated above it. And we didn't want a podium box, because a lot of times these podiums, they can feel they lack a human scale. You come up and it's a big box. And by the time you get up to the roof, there's a lot of them are very nice, but when you kind of arrive, there's the sense of scale is not here. And here you don't perceive it as a podium; you perceive it as a landscape.
Exactly,
absolutely,
exactly. You look at it when you come; it's overwhelming. You have like glass, and you just have massive space. It makes you feel small. I mean, it's something unnatural. So, how you design the curves
and
non-static.
When you're out in nature, things change throughout the season. And it's not static. One corner of the building looks very different from another. Absolutely. And I think the way you perceive the whole scheme, especially the towers, is very, very different, because you've got these very, very slender, very, very tall structure from one side, and then they sort of open up on the other side, where the views open up to the greens, the golf course. So it's a place that I think it's there's lots of little surprises. It's non-static. You can walk around. There's a sense of kind of joy and discovery in the landscape around.
Absolutely.
That was the intention.
You could be under a courtyard which is open to sky, and the next moment you turn a curve and you'll see like a jungle sort of place. And then you turn around, you could see like, something else. And there's always a different view from where you, you will never be struck by this tall towers, because you've got these view cutters.
Multiple layers.
You got
where
these
you can,
pergolas which are just cutting your view of the tower. So wherever you look, you have a more human scale and intimate space rather than just looking up at the towers, which is something like that.
The name, you guys came up with the name for the project,
Yeah.
Omara.
so
Yeah.
so actually
What does that mean?
the actually the thing is about the name. So we really did not think much about it, and we did not think about naming it initially. It just came to us later on, because ultimately we were just talking about longevity all throughout. We were talking about wellness, we were talking about longevity, and then we came up with Omara, and Omara means longevity. So it just kind of struck, and it became part of that. So it was very natural, the journey to bring that name. It was part of the design, all along, but it finally came at the end.
Yeah.
So it just everything fell, in the right spaces at the right time.
Yeah.
Everything kind of culminated like nature. So,
Yeah. And it feels very connected.
Very
Because you
organic.
do get a lot of names out there of projects where,
Yeah.
how does that relate to that? You
Yeah.
know,
So,
and their names.
it's a feeling. I
this
mean,
is
you
really-
just look at
It's a feeling.
all the projects' names. It's a feeling,
Mhm.
right? And some will feel like, let's live in a 5-star. Some will feel like it's about something else or something else. So every project is named consciously. I mean, it's not like, or they have fancy names which feel like, it's luxury. And sometimes it's like really fancy, so they're trying to hide that it's not luxury. So they always have a meaning, and Omara just gives us like that feel that it's about slowing down and feeling health and wellness, and it just sounds with the Om also. It's a very big thing in India. Like Om is something it has a lot of vibrations from the universe. It's the thing you do to make yourself calm and stress free, and also so it has Om in it. When it came to us, like he said, it was just that we love it. Like, there was no
The
second thought.
vibration was right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we were planning to do with the scheme, and it just struck. So it was very organic.
Yeah.
I think another element that I find interesting is we're seeing a shift a little bit globally, and also in India, especially post-COVID, where we're seeing a shift from investors to end user, where the end user is really starting to care about their home, and it was because they were stuck in their home, and because there was this huge element of stress. The home became the sanctuary. So people suddenly started to look for different things. It's not just about an efficient plan or a square footage or location. It's about how does that place make me feel as a human? How does it feel like a home? And I think that shift connects very well to what you're trying to do. But I think my question is, I think you were quite brave to go with this, because I think it is quite new. And I think there's an element of risk because it's not a proven thing. So I'm quite intrigued to see how the public really will react to these beautiful natural spaces, because it's quite new from what's there in the market, right?
Yeah.
So
this is the journey. Actually, this is the journey that we have been living. This life is, our lives are also centered towards wellness. So this is the journey that we want people to undertake. And I'm sure there are people who are.
No, I'm pretty sure, because we hang out with so many people.
Yeah,
we know so many people, and even you or even the people who are working on this project, half of them would be really thoughtful about. And when we started, maybe a year plus, and so before that, the COVID thing you said, and COVID has actually just made people realize the mortality of things. The mortality of it. Like, everything is not forever, and for them, it's not just about their homes; it's also about them taking care and enjoying moments
With
and
family.
being spiritual,
Mhm.
being
Relax.
happy in the moment, being present, and enjoying family time.
Living in the now. Living in the now.
Taking care of the health,
and
because
understanding that health is
really
prime.
important, right?
Because we saw people dropping dead like every day. It was the worst thing that happened, and people who were not fit enough or who were not taking care of themselves, they were not immune to this
So 2
disease.
years ago, how many of wellness edibles, wellness supplements, or wellness programs around where you live, may it be in France, may it be in Cyprus, would you see? And within those 2 years, the last 2 years, hasn't it just been growing and transformed into?
I think we've definitely seen on the international stage, wellness has become
It's
a more
like-
foreign, a theme that people really started caring about.
Yeah.
I think in France, where I grew up in the Mediterranean, wellness is sort of embedded in the culture there.
Exactly.
It's outdoor living. The climate's nice. You have an active lifestyle. The food is organic.
Yeah.
You buy it from the local market,
Yes.
and to a certain degree, and I think Esteva, who did the interiors from Mallorca, he has the same Mediterranean lifestyle. And I think people will notice that there is a little bit of that Mediterranean flair and kind of, way of life, under the sun, with the, outside. And a lot of these spaces that are sort of shaded, inside outside spaces where you're covered, you're in the shade, you're surrounded by nature, or you're covered by trees to protect you from the sun and the heat. We've taken a lot of care in trying to use natural ventilation in these spaces so that you're not living in just a conditioned space, right? That you have these spaces. But yes, to answer your question, wellness is something that has become to the forefront. And that's pretty much everywhere around the world. I think people really care about starting to really care a lot more about their health. And
Even
I
the
would say in
people-
India, definitely, it
these-
wasn't one of the big drivers.
If you see these fitness events that are happening, thousands of people are going for these fitness events. And it wasn't like that ever.
Running has
In the
become so popular.
past 2 years, it's just exploded because people have just started taking care of themselves, understanding the value of your body.
It's a new cool, right? I mean,
And,
it's really good that you get up in the morning.
So many of the big clubs or pubs in the UK or anywhere around the world, they're changing. LA, they're becoming wellness centers. There's a Soho house which is opened in Ibiza. It's a wellness center. You could not have
Wellness Soho.
thought of a wellness center in
Amman has
Ibiza.
changed all of its positioning to wellness now.
Yeah.
One of the biggest chains, and
Most
it makes
of the-
sense. And I think,
Yeah.
especially a city like Gurgaon, and I think for India, it's a major shift,
a
especially
major shift.
for city living. We spoke a while back about how 30% of the Indian population are going to end up living in cities over the next decade, right?
absolutely.
So the city infrastructure historically are behind in India. We don't have the big public parks that you have in London or in other cities. So
Exactly.
therefore, I think as developers, and I think you've taken a little step where it falls upon the people that are building the city, which are the developers, to start incorporating that element of well-being where people
Excellent
can be
point.
outside.
Excellent.
And I think you've taken a small step in that direction, and hopefully a lot of people will follow. You
Hopefully.
need that outdoor space.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the big things that
That shift
when
is
I'm in
happening.
Mumbai or there's no real public park where I can go and take a walk.
Yeah.
And with the family.
With the
Imagine
family.
this, that, okay, there are a lot of fitness centers around your house, but you will never find that your kids are actually looking at you working out, or your kids are looking at you meditating, or they're meditating with you, or they're doing yoga with you. As a family, you're having breathing classes together. Imagine, it's always like one has to take a car, go to that center, okay, I have to
Drive
go
through the
there, I have to
traffic,
go
yeah.
there. And here, with your family, you can experience wellness. So imagine how much learning your next, generation will have from you, or they might teach you, and about wellness, like, or your grandparents doing it with you. That's just amazing. And how we're so excited that whenever things are coming together, like a new piece of the puzzle falling in, we're like, man, this is amazing, and it's always like almost like a dream house. You know, even for us, like if you want to ever live, you would definitely, choose something like
Omara.
this. This is
Yeah. So I think you coined it. It's nourish your body, nourish your mind, nourish your soul.
yes,
nourish your
And
being.
if that's your sort of
yes.
what,
Yeah.
then Omar is
So
for
what
you,
we've
right?
done is that we've
Yes.
we've created our brand towards wellness. So anything that we do now, whether it's residential, whether it's offices, whether it's commercial, whether it's a senior housing, anything that it'll have a wellness angle in it.
So, for
It'll have a
example,
wellness
you
center
go
in
to
it.
some offices, right? You go to offices and you have these fancy lobbies with Satwario and tack. You have the chrome finishes, you have the cornered tables and the glazing going up and all. So it's just imagine it. It's just my personal thought, just for the design. Of course, there are many elements to having a nice place to work, which relaxes you. But one of the things is design. So with design in offices, it's always like it just this has a sense of urgency. It has a sense of intimidating you. It has a sense of bright light, just like forcing
No,
you to.
I think office design is very much changing as well.
Changing as
Yeah.
well.
Towards
Yeah.
you're getting offices merging with hospitality, merging with
Exactly.
with
Exactly.
with,
So like you would be living in a resort, you could be working in a resort as well, right?
no,
So
and I think we've
that's what we're
we've
focusing
sort of
on.
embodied that in the scheme where we provided places where people can do
Yeah.
agile work. They can take their laptop and they can sit outside, or they can sit in
Exactly.
the business center. They can
And
sit.
that's what COVID has done.
the
In the
lounges.
past, if you see, working from home has been working from South of France on a beach, or maybe Goa in India, maybe multiple places.
Absolutely.
So it has to relax you, and you can do you're much more productive.
There is no getting away from the fact that we haven't totally shut down work, work from home. I mean, we've only office-driven community. We are not, and I think it's the time to accept that this is for eternity now. That it makes
Especially
sense.
with the AI coming in. I mean, it's going to be a major shift technologically, in the future.
Yeah.
That will really create a lot of the jobs that are normally, are not required.
Hopefully, it'll give us a bit more time to go out and
Yeah,
be a bit more in
Exactly.
nature and
Absolutely.
exactly.
Get inspired.
yeah.
Be more in
And
places.
and even need to talk about the business center that we've created in Omara. It is a beautiful space which has a lot of green, a lot of like what we were talking about is in your.
I think all of
living
the
in a resort.
spaces we've tried to, in certain ways, to connect with nature, to
Yes.
bring in natural light, to
Yeah.
bring in the natural materials inside it. And I think and this is a big credit to Esteba and his team as well, is the consistency throughout the spaces.
Yeah.
Right. It all feels part of a curated experiment. Right.
Absolutely.
Experience. It's so even spaces are completely different from the ballroom and banquet hall to the kids club to the spa to the gym. All the spaces,
all
you'll
connected.
see little elements that are of sort of consistent detailing, consistent material
absolutely.
palette, color palette, natural light, access to greenery, views out, bringing nature in, and soft curves,
Like
which is the same
one
with the architecture.
material or two materials, lesser materials, but then in everything, when you have consistency, it feels as one space. When you go from that space to your home, it will not feel that I've come from somewhere else. But most of the clubhouses now you see in Gurgaon, it's like you're going to an Oberoi and then coming back to your home in reality. So it's completely different.
It's kind of very hospitality driven.
Yes.
I think that when you mentioned the nourish the soul as well, what I liked about the experience center very much is how art and artisanal crafts has been brought in to the space as well. And there's some beautiful art pieces that are created by local artisans that are part of this. And I think it makes you stop, it makes you look, and it gives that, again, element of surprise that you, in a lot of sort of more corporate driven spaces you don't necessarily get. And I think, again, that's something that helps you stop, helps you relax, helps you wonder.
Yeah.
It's also the art. It's also the smell, which is signature Omara smell. We took time and effort to develop with artisans who are craftsmen for this, and the smell makes you relax. It's sort of also something that you would feel that it's not being smelled before. It relaxes you. It kind of, and then there's
The
the
sound.
music that we have also picked up, giving the full brief. Like we gave you a brief or Esteva a brief. So that music is again designed around this theme where you calm.
The hospitality also, we've really picked each and everybody,
We handpick a very good team.
very good team
for
and
hospitality.
who are taking care of the hospitality. We have a herb garden there. We have a huge kitchen. So, we're making certain dishes from the using the herbs from the herb garden in the experience center.
which are benefited
So
for the
locally sourced.
Locally
sourced
sourced,
and also-
organic.
yeah
So
benefit you.
keeping all the things, all the elements that we would be doing in the main scheme, we've got it in the experience center. So it's a holistic experience that eventually will transform into the entire scheme.
Okay.
I would be really excited. I mean, I think you as well. We're all excited about.
I'm excited about unveiling it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
For sure.
I can't wait
We've all
to
been
see
waiting
what
for it.
people think, and
It'll be
and
great.
even more so, I can't wait to see it built.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Look
So
forward.
let's make it happen.
Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
Great.
We're really delighted that we're sitting today, for a warm conversation and really personal and passionate chat with Jonas Upton. He is director at UHA, one of the most celebrated firms internationally, making amazing projects. And we're really glad that we had a relation and we carry on a really great bond and working on one of our really nice projects called Omara by Trehan IRIS. It's in housing in Gurgaon for wellness and residents, for the well-being of the residents. And me and Aman are the promoters of Trehan IRIS. So yeah, we just want to carry on and start about knowing each other's thoughts of the journey of making this project.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to have an opportunity to have a sit-down chat and reminiscing about journey of building a beautiful project together with Jonas Upton. He's director at UHA, one of the most celebrated architecture firms based out of UK, who do great work around the world. And it was really a privilege and a passionate, intimate journey of figuring it out and working this out from the seed of an idea of building a housing around wellness. Really inspired us into creating something really differentiated. So lovely, having an opportunity to chat with him and me and Aman as the promoters of Trehan IRIS. Yeah.
So, some people say that we're seeing a shift from luxury to wellness. And I tend to disagree, because I think wellness is luxury. I think having, the most important thing you have is your health. Without your health, everything else becomes irrelevant.
Absolutely.
Right? So the ultimate luxury is your health. That's the one thing we cannot compromise on. So I think building a project around that one thing, the most important thing, makes all the sense in the world.
Absolutely.
And I think everybody obviously should embrace their own health. But if you are one of those increasing numbers who want to nourish your body, want to nourish your mind, want to nourish your soul, then Omara is the project for you.
Absolutely. That's the thought process.